Hello, everyone. This is Sobriety with Drake, the YouTube channel where we talk about all things addiction, recovery, and sobriety related. And I'm Drake. And for today's topic, it's a pretty serious topic. We're going to be talking about the 10 most tragic deaths from the show Intervention. In total, there have been 64 participants from Intervention that have passed away since the show's debut. And I wanted to select what I believe were the 10 most tragic deaths from that show, in my opinion. And I wanted to do this video for two reasons. For one, I wanted it to show how serious the illness of addiction is and what it can lead to. And then the second reason is I wanted to honor the memory of these participants who have participated on the show and passed away and share their legacy and story with others. And hopefully this video will inspire those who are struggling with addiction to get sober. And that's why I'm making this video today. So we're going to go through these 10 most tragic deaths from intervention through chronological order of their season. I felt like it was inappropriate and tacky to rank these in any way. I feel like it was just made more sense to go through them by the season number. So let's get started. So the first tragic intervention death that I want to talk about is Vanessa, who was from season 1, episode 2, which premiered on in March 2005. And Vanessa was a former actress who suffered from agoraphobia and had a shopping addiction. On August 30th, 2018, Vanessa was shot and killed by a police officer during a welfare check at her home. South Pasadena police officers responded to her home after getting a call about a 49-year-old woman who was suffering from seizures. The sheriff stated that Vanessa suffered from eating disorders and was severely disabled. Three officers and a mental health worker spent 90 minutes trying to administer aid to Vanessa, and she was reportedly uncooperative. And then at one point, Vanessa brandished a semi-automatic handgun and pointed it at the officers, which led to them opening fire on her. It was discovered later that the weapon that Vanessa was brandishing was a BB gun. It didn't turn out to be a real gun. The story of Vanessa's death is extremely tragic and sad, and I pray for Vanessa and her family that they may be able to grieve from this loss. And it's very tragic how mental health can play such a role in someone's life where it causes them to ultimately lose their life. And I think this should make us take mental health illness more seriously, that it is an illness like physical illness and that it can lead to death. The next intervention death that I found very tragic is Brian from season 1, episode 4. Brian on the show was a crystal meth and sex addict, and you may remember his episode, him walking around the streets at night looking for hookups while high on meth and, using the phone boost to call gay sex hotlines. Those are two notable things I remember from his episode. In November 2016, Brian tragically passed away from a medical error when being treated for a skin infection. And even though he was arrested a year prior in 2015 for meth trafficking, it has been said and known that he was sober during the time of his death and the time of the treatment to get his skin infection treated, and that his death was the result of medical malpractice. I believe this is a very tragic, sad passing because he was on the right path. He was trying to make improvements in life, and then a illness comes along, and people who you trust, these doctors to treat you, end up making an error, and then your life's gone, and it's just very sad and tragic. I could relate to this death in Brian's story a lot. I was a former crystal meth and sex addict myself, and during that time when I was an addict, I had a MRSA infection in my leg, and I could have been Brian. I could have, went into surgery to get the MRSA removed and then never woke up. So I really connect to this on a personal level, and I also another thing, Brian's mother and sister also passed away within 2 years of his passing. So I pray for his father, pray that he's able to grieve and deal with the loss of his family members. The next tragic intervention death that I'll be talking about is Dylan from season 3, episode 6, which premiered April 2007. Dylan was 20 years old at the time of the episode, and he was a meth addict. And at the end of the episode, it was said that Dylan left treatment after 31 days, but he did claim to be sober. In November 2011, Dylan's girlfriend had called the police after he had strangled her. Dylan fled and then entered his mother and stepfather's home, where he beat his stepfather with a gun and forced them out of the home. During a standoff with police, Dylan then fatally shot himself. Dylan's death and story is very tragic and truly shows the effects that meth can have on your brain and your mental health. Um, so sad that he had to go out in such a violent way and that he ultimately committed suicide. The fourth tragic intervention death that I'll be talking about is Chris from season 6, episode 10, which premiered on February 2009. And Chris was an alcoholic who was gay and had a partner at the time of the filming. And during the episode, his family ostracized him and disapproved of him being gay. And this ultimately led to him like struggling with alcoholism. At the end of the episode, Chris had entered rehab for treatment for his alcoholism. And in an interview with his husband, his husband stated that he completed treatment and that he came home from treatment and would have periodic times of sobriety mixed with periodic times of drinking, and that he believes the show did prolong Chris's life because of the condition he was in at the time of the filming. His husband stated that Chris was close to death and that the show did help him live longer, but ultimately on August 28th, 2009, Chris took his life while under the influence of alcohol. The next tragic intervention death I'll be talking about is Sebastian from season 6, episode 12, which premiered August 2009. And Sebastian appeared in an episode with his brother Marcel where they were both addicted to snorting heroin. In April 2013, Sebastian tragically passed away from a stroke due to complications with his heroin addiction, and he was only 25 at the time of his death. One thing to come out of this that was positive was that his brother Marcel has been sober since his death and is doing amazing in life, and that is really great to hear after hearing about such tragic news about Sebastian. It's good to hear that his brother is doing well and is sober. The next tragic death from an intervention participant is Marianne from season 9, episode 9, which aired February 2011. Marianne was an alcoholic who turned to vodka after the loss of her two young children. At the age of 53, Marianne passed away in a trailer fire. The owner of the trailer that Marianne was renting was in an ongoing feud with Marianne and had previously been charged with aggravated assault against Marianne. The owner of the trailer had previously also threatened Marianne by saying, "It's my trailer and I can burn it all down if I want to." However, the cause of the fire could not be confirmed, therefore, there was not enough evidence to point towards Marianne's death being a homicide. The next tragic intervention death I'll be talking about is Skylar from season 11, episode 8, which premiered in February 2012. Skylar was a former child actor who had suffered from an addiction to bath salts, and this was a very memorable, notable episode of intervention that a lot of people talk about because of his hallucinations in the episode and because of a lot of his family dynamics. Unfortunately, Skylar passed away tragically on October 16th, 2020, due to complications with a brain infection and organ failure, which is said to be because of alcohol withdrawal. However, a month before his passing, Skylar's girlfriend posted a comment on Intervention Directory that said that Skylar was doing better and that he was an amazing father and that things seemed to be going well in his life. She did, however, mention that he did struggle with difficulties from notoriety and attention from the show, being on the show Intervention. The next tragic intervention death that I'll be talking about is Carissa from season 15, episode 5, which premiered April 2016. Carissa was a heroin addict, and she was known for being a very likable figure on the show despite her troubles. On March 8th, 2017, Carissa passed away from a hit and run car accident. She was sober at the time and had been sober since February 2016, meaning she had over a year of sobriety at the time of her passing. Carissa was on vacation in Florida at the time of her passing. She was driving on a turnpike and her phone had fell out of her car, so she had pulled over to the side of the turnpike to retrieve her phone. And when she had exited the car, a passing car had come by and hit her and then fled the scene of the accident. It was later, the suspect was later apprehended after the accident off scene. And sadly, Carissa passed away due to her injuries. The next tragic intervention death I'll be talking about is Megan from season 18, episode 15, which aired August 2016. This was originally an episode from Intervention Canada, but it eventually premiered in a later season on Intervention USA. And Megan was addicted to inhalants, and she was identified as a lesbian and was also a musician. Not much is known about her death except for that she died from suicide November 28th, 2016. It is just a really tragic death because of how talented and liked she was. It's just unfortunate that she had to pass away from this at an early age. The last tragic intervention death that I'll be talking about in this video is Ashley from season 17, episode 9, which premiered September 2017. Ashley was a former athlete who did taekwondo, who eventually fell into an addiction to crack and opioids due to childhood trauma. It was revealed on July 2nd, 2021, that she passed away in a car accident similar to Carissa. And she was also, her toxicology report came back that she was testing negative for all drugs during the time of her accident. And it is unknown what caused the accident, but that she did sadly pass away sober at a young age, which is very tragic. So that's the end of the video. Those were 10 very tragic deaths from the show Intervention of the 64 participants who have passed away since Intervention has started airing. Again, this video is to honor the memory of these people that have passed away and remember their legacy and the impact they had on everyone from being on the show and their bravery for sharing their stories with us and the struggles that they went through. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. I do other videos on intervention, such as intervention Where Are They Now videos, and I'm hoping to also in the future do interviews with intervention participants in the future. So please like, comment, and subscribe for that. And thank you so much. Have a great day, guys. Bye.